Thank you, President Colleen. It is a singular honor to introduce today's commencement speaker, Kevin Lynch. Kevin Lynch is one of the world's preeminent software developers and technology innovators. His work has included leadership roles on some of the most influential software development efforts over the last 25 years at companies including Apple, Adobe, Macromedia, General Magic, Frame Technology. Kevin is currently the Vice President of Technology at Apple. In 1984, Kevin graduated from Lincoln Way High School, enrolled in UIC's computer science program, and in his spare time, he helped start one of the first Mac software startups. During his sophomore year here at UIC, the software company he helped start was sold, and as part of the deal, Kevin was required to move to Silicon Valley for 6 months to work with the new company. Some of the groundbreaking technology Kevin has helped develop include General Magic's personal digital assistant in the early 1990s, widely recognized as the precursor to your modern smartphone, being the lead behind Macromedia's Dreamweaver HTML authoring tool, and introducing Flash to enable multimedia on the web, eventually reaching over 1 billion people. And after Macromedia was sold to Adobe, leading Adobe's transformation to the cloud-based company, eventually becoming Adobe's Chief Technical Officer. Kevin's career crossed paths with Steve Jobs at many points, sometimes as collaborators and other times as competitors. Before Steve Jobs' untimely death, he tried to recruit Kevin to Apple. Although Kevin had always wanted to work at Apple, Kevin declined because he knew he needed to stay and guide Adobe's evolving Creative Cloud strategy. Some years later, Apple, under its new CEO, Tim Cook, was eventually able to recruit Kevin Lynch. When Kevin was recruited to Apple, he was not told which project he would be leading until his first day of work. And in fact, for his first 18 months at Apple, even Kevin's wife, Margaret, did not know the secret project he was working on. Finally, on September 10th, 2014, his wife, Margaret, found out what Kevin had been working on at Apple. At an Apple event seen by over 1 million people, Apple CEO Tim Cook announced Apple's newest product, the Apple Watch, where he also introduced Kevin Lynch as the vice president and leader of the Apple Watch software effort, and had given Kevin the first live demo of the Apple Watch. Please join me in welcoming Kevin Lynch.
Good evening, and thank you, Professor Vincent, for that very kind introduction. So Chancellor Emeritus, members of the UIC faculty and staff, really delighted family members and friends, congratulations and welcome, and congratulations to the great graduating class of 2015 at UIC. Way to go, everybody. And I really appreciate your including me here this evening. It's really an honor for me to be here. And I have to say, I actually never expected to be attending university graduation from standing up here rather than sitting there. And I was a student here on campus 30 years ago, and I've had quite a few adventures since then. And I didn't quite finish my degree, which I do believe Dean Nelson and the Chancellor knew about before they asked me to speak, I think. I'm a son of the Chicago area, and I'm an Irish American. I grew up in Riverdale, and then we moved south of Chicago into the cornfields. And like many of you, I was one of the first of my extended family to go to college. And while I was attending UIC, I was also working. During the day, I was taking classes here, and then in the evenings and weekends, I was working at a software startup, and then also I was working part-time in the electronic visualization lab, which is a great, great lab here at UIC. And I've been reflecting a lot on what I might talk with you about today and what I might possibly give you advice about. Well, my first piece of advice is this. When preparing a commencement address, beware of watching the greatest speeches in the history of commencements. I can't write like J.K. Rowling. I do not have the delivery of Steve Jobs. And I almost didn't recover from that. But that did lead me to my first topic I'd like to talk about with you, which is bravery. Now, there's certainly the extreme kind of bravery that might be exhibited by the Americans who showed in taking down a gunman on that train in France, or the fellow who is landing that plane in the Hudson in New York. And I'm talking more about a quieter type of bravery. And this is a bravery about speaking your mind and affecting change. Change in your life, change in the world, change in your work. And this type of bravery actually made this very school happen. It was Richard Daley who brought tremendous bravery in the 1950s to really turn Chicago around, and in the 60s create this school and turn that dream into reality. And here we are today at one of the top research universities in the US, situated in this really great city in Chicago. And this was done in a really tough political climate at the time, and here we are. And he brought a really can-do attitude. He made these big plans, and he made it happen. He was also an Irishman from the south side of Chicago, too, I might add. I also saw this quieter type of bravery at home from my parents. And my parents, I'm really happy, are here tonight with us. And growing up, my family saved enough money to actually build a house down south of Chicago. This was in the 1970s, which we then sold, and we built another. And we actually did this 3 times. And building these houses as a kid, I would see my dad actually design the house at the kitchen table in our home, and he would take input from us on what the house should be like, and we were kids. And then we actually helped build these houses. He would bring his friends in to help, and we would create these places, and we all worked together to make them happen. And I learned from that you can really change reality. Your thoughts and your ideas can take form. In our case, we could live in them, but you should really embrace this idea that you can change the world. Don't take the world just as it is. And in my work, the best of times have been the bravest of times, certainly not the easiest of times. Forging into the unknown with a blank piece of paper, growing faster than you could have ever imagined. We're facing a crisis and failure. Getting through all of these requires bravery and confidence and faith in yourself. I've been through a number of these challenging situations. And one of these was that disagreement I got into with Steve before I joined Apple. That was not an easy argument, and I didn't win the argument, but something surprising happened. Steve got to know me better and did ask me to join Apple, and while I didn't at the time, he left the door open for that. And later he did tragically pass away. But I couldn't stop thinking about our conversations, and I'm so happy I finally joined Apple, and I'm really giving my all there right now. And I did this with a leap of faith, not knowing exactly what we would build or what I would do, but that I'd be working with this great team. And my first day I learned, in fact, I was going to work on Apple Watch, and we had a lot of work to do. And it's been this series of really amazing technical and design challenges ever since then. And I'm doing some of the most fulfilling work in my career right now, and I wouldn't be doing that if it hadn't been for bravery and stepping forward into the unknown like that. And you're embarking on your own journey now into the unknown. I'm sure you don't have an exact idea of what's ahead of you right now. And even after years of experience, I can tell you that you will still be wondering things like, can I do this? Will it work? Are we doomed? Be brave and persistent. If you have something in your mind, speak up and take action. And then someday perhaps it will be you up here braving through the commencement speech of 2045. The next thing I'd like to talk about is about imagination. And without great imagination, bravery really won't lead you anywhere interesting. And it's really the foundation of my work and could be super helpful to all of you in all of your endeavors. And I look at this as sort of a applied imagination, if you will. It's the art of what should be and the science of what can be. It's both human and technical. It's both emotional and logical. And there's a creative tension between these that really causes new ideas to appear. And at Apple, this is called the intersection of technology and liberal arts. And this is an incredibly powerful combination because technology really needs to be human in order to be useful to humans. And for me, this early on was, and still is, fueled by a real love for science fiction and imaginary worlds. I loved reading writers like Madeleine L'Engle, Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov. But I found the greatest power of applying my imagination when I started getting access to computers. And this was in high school, and I was amazed how fast you could turn fictional ideas into reality just by writing software. And it was actually here at UIC that I learned the creative power I'm talking about with this art and science. Working in the electronic visualization lab, I experienced engineers and artists working right next to each other, literally sitting at the same lab benches together. And we'd be developing graphic software, and artists would be using it to make art, and they'd have feature requests right there, and we could type and make those features for them. And that was super compelling for me and really shaped my view on how to create things. And UIC is also one of the top schools in terms of diversity in the US, and I didn't fully appreciate that when I was here, but looking back on it, I realized how that's also influenced me as well. And the most diverse people you get working together in terms of culture and race and gender and experience, the more open-minded you can become, the more points of view you're going to get, and the more insights you're going to have. So give yourself to be permitted to be imaginative. Don't get stuck in the structure of how things have always been done. Keep asking questions. Listen, think, don't be too logical, stay playful. And sometimes your imagination is going to lead you down these kind of what seem like strange or odd paths. And don't hold yourself back from these. I found that by the act of even trying in these cases, you're going to certainly learn, and that experience is going to stay with you and help you with your next adventures, and it brings you this wisdom over time. Imagination also enables empathy. It's about putting yourself in someone else's shoes and imagining what they're thinking. And that brings me to my final item, which is so easily overlooked, and that's kindness. As we become really profoundly connected through technology, kindness becomes more and more challenging as our relationships are more abstract with a larger number of people, and it's difficult to kind of remember that these are humans on the other side. But these connections can also be really powerful if we do remember these are humans, maintain our ability to be kind in our interactions. And this is happening actually across disciplines. In elementary schools now, this is being taught as social-emotional learning. It actually became part of the Illinois curriculum about 10 years ago. In business, teams are learning more about emotional intelligence and how to work together. Even in the medical space, doctors are learning things called clinical empathy. This is really about thinking about others in kindness. And particularly in stressful or really high-risk situations, I found that kindness really helps you create incredibly productive and creative environments. Acting in this kind of kind manner, it helps reduce fear and anxiety, lack of trust, and it doesn't mean lack of conflict, though, or directness. In fact, it's the exact opposite of that. It enables people to speak the truth as they see it and have meaningful debate. And by not reacting to problems with anger and fury, you enable a culture of experimentation and open communication, and that's the key to innovation and learning. And kindness helps you with new ideas. I found these new ideas are typically these really gentle, wispy things, and they're so easily crushed. And it takes strength to choose to give these new ideas space and time to grow, and it's often a process of nurturing these ideas along. And this sympathy and empathy and cooperation and collaboration is really the core of what makes us human and helps us all succeed together. And I found that what you really are going to remember over time is not so much the details of what you did. It's going to be how you felt and how you made other people feel. And how you think and act shapes who you are. And you can choose how to respond, choose how to work. You can choose kindness over coldness, and you're going to reap love and fellowship and loyalty, and the results of your efforts are going to be far better for it. So I see bravery, imagination, and kindness as some of the core attributes of humanity. In the 30 years since I've been here at UIC and walked this campus, there's been tremendous change. I was reflecting on this, and when I was here, people weren't walking around with phones. There was no web. There was no Google or Facebook. How did we survive? I'm not sure. And most people didn't actually even think they needed computers beyond hobbyists. And the internet was just largely for academia at the time. And I'll give you some little technical facts. Communication speeds were 9,600 bits per second. It sounds pretty cool, but it's about 10,000 times faster today. You could do processing about a few megahertz in computers at the time, and today's Mac is about 3,000 times faster than that. Hard disk storage, if you're lucky, you had a few megabytes, which would hold like one selfie today. And tech geeks were just entering the mainstream, other than like in Revenge of the Nerds, or Matthew Broderick in War Games. We weren't really mainstream. That's really starting to happen right now. So all you computer science graduates, you're totally going to be accepted and relevant now. Now, in the next 30 years, you're going to likely experience more change, more technological change than I think we've seen in the past 150 years, because the pace of change is accelerating. Now, if you look back at the past 150 years, some pretty amazing things happened in the past 150 years. Included things like mass production, the telephone, phonograph, the light bulb, the telegraph, the zipper. And you're in for this really amazing adventure ahead. And I was thinking about what kinds of things are you going to see in your careers and your life over the next 30 years? And really, who knows? But here's some ideas. I think you're going to see computing devices that exceed the processing power of the human brain. Everyone in the world is going to have access to a high-speed internet connection, even in the remotest places. Healthcare is going to be transformed. Medicines are going to be customized to you. Education will be transformed. You're going to spend a lot of time in virtual reality. Food will be healthier. Cash will disappear. Voting is going to become digital. Drones will deliver your packages to you. Programming will become a core subject in education. Nanotech is going to change production. Food's going to be 3D printed for you. Your cars are going to drive you, and you're going to wear a supercomputer. I don't know, though, if you're going to see the Cubs win the World Series. Maybe. So during this adventure ahead, I encourage you to bring your humanity to the fore, and you're only going to be limited by your bravery, your imagination, and your ability to work with others. So bring great purpose and human values to everything you do. Be brave, be imaginative, be kind, change the world for the better. Thank you, and best wishes.